Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. The time I'm recording this, we are about an hour away from kicking off the press conference where we will hear from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell after the FOMC meeting that is concluding today and started yesterday. And this is an extremely important FOMC meeting, probably the most important one that we've had, at least in the past couple years, because we just got record inflation last year in 2021. The Fed is finally acknowledging the fact that inflation is a real problem, and they have been talking up the idea of tapering and getting tighter with monetary policy. Not that the Fed has really indicated that they're going to become in any way hawkish. When interest rates are at 0%, moving them up a few points, I don't think necessarily makes you a hawk, but it does make you significantly less dovish than they have been. And now the Fed is even talking about shrinking their balance sheet by not replacing bonds as they mature. And stocks have been very volatile over the past couple days, although ahead of the press conference following the meeting here, we've seen a significant rebound in stocks all across the board. All the major stock indexes are up significantly today. And crude oil also showing a pretty solid move up. It's up at 87.28. And at these levels, I think crude oil might be getting a little bit overbought, but with the level of inflation that we are experiencing, I do ultimately expect crude oil to move to much higher levels. Gold and silver just sort of languishing a little bit. Gold down 22 bucks, so a little bit of a move down for gold. Silver down 10 cents, basically just hanging out right around that 23.80 level. It was green earlier, it ticked down into the red, but no significant movement as far as silver goes at the moment. Bitcoin has recovered significantly from the lows it was experiencing just a few trading sessions previously. Bitcoin touched down to a low of around $33,000. Now we're back up to 37, a little bit of a pullback from the highs earlier today. It was over 38, but so it's a pretty significant rebound in Bitcoin as well. And at this point, everybody is just waiting with bated breath to hear what Jerome Powell is going to have to say after this FOMC. Will the Fed go ahead and begin to raise rates, as many have speculated? If they do, I don't expect it to be more than a quarter of a basis point. We might see a small tick up in interest rates today. Whatever they do, I'm sure they will be doing some damage control in terms of how Jerome Powell's prepared remarks go. They're going to want to reassure markets that even though the Fed may be becoming less dovish and trying to rein in the problem of inflation, that they are also paying attention to markets. I think they are going to do everything they can to try to reassure investors that the Fed put is still in place. And they may raise rates today, but I don't think that they will be able to continue to raise rates after today in any kind of a long-term fashion. If they do raise rates today, we'll see what the stock market does. Could be that we get a little bit of a pullback, but it depends on what Powell has to say, of course. Regardless of what happens today, I don't think that the Fed is going to be able to continue to raise rates in any meaningful way. And the biggest reason for that is the U.S. national debt. I did a video yesterday about how the last time the Fed raised interest rates to combat inflation, it was actually a huge boon for gold and silver. They began that program in late 1979, and it basically kicked off the biggest run-up that gold and silver have ever had. Silver went up to its high of 50 bucks in 1980. Gold hit a high of 850. And if you adjust for inflation, those targets still haven't really been taken out, even though nominally gold is higher than that 850. Adjust for inflation, that price level of 850 in 1980 was higher than gold's current price. But one thing that the Fed had going for it back in 1979 and 1980 when it was attempting to get inflation under control is that the federal debt to GDP ratio was pretty low. It was about 34.5. So you can see here on usdebtclock.org. We had about a $1 trillion in national debt then. Today, things are much different. We have approaching $30 trillion in national debt, and the debt to GDP ratio is much higher, 127.55%, so drastically higher than the last time the Fed was put in this position of facing rising inflation. And for that reason, I don't think that the Fed is going to be able to effectively fight the forces of inflation. They are stuck between a rock and a hard place, because if they do raise rates significantly, they are going to see stocks come tumbling down. As we've seen so far this week, even just the rumor of rate hikes is enough to significantly take down stock prices and to deflate those bubbles that have been inflated over the past decade. And, as far as gold and silver goes, once it becomes apparent that the Fed is not capable of raising interest rates in a meaningful way, and I think that that will become apparent to investors at large sooner rather than later, there's going to become significant demand for gold and silver as safe haven assets, the kind of move we haven't really seen yet, because I really think that so far investors at large believe the Fed. I mean, the Fed has claimed to be in control of the situation. They have talked about getting inflation under control. They have talked about their mandate for price stability. But at the same time, they've had this ultra loose monetary policy, and they've inflated all these dramatic bubbles. And they keep pretending that all of this easy monetary policy and this intervention in markets is temporary, but they've inflated everything to such a high level, and there's so much leverage in the system now. Not to mention the size of government spending that has been enabled by all of this easy money. It's grown so drastically that now there's just no way they can really reverse policy in any meaningful way without completely going into a deflationary death spiral, seeing asset prices drop dramatically. And like I said, the Fed is stuck between a rock and a hard place. I think we're going to see some of that today in Jerome Powell's comments and his answers in the Q&A. He's going to try to be everything to everyone. He will try to do damage control in the market and ensure investors that the Fed is committed to an economic recovery, which to the Fed basically means elevated asset prices. And he's also going to try to reassure everybody that the Fed can get inflation under control. I don't think that it's possible to really do both. I think that the Fed is going to get a bad outcome, but it's not because of what the Fed is doing now necessarily. It's because of what they've been doing really for the past 20 years. They've been inflating bubbles and keeping them reinflated whenever they pop. So I think that we'll probably see Powell possibly raise rates in a small way today while doing a lot of damage control with the way he phrases things. And if we do see a big turnaround in markets, if we see some kind of a crisis, or if we see simply the mere fact that interest rates have begun to tick higher, that causes the asset bubbles that we've seen in the major stock indexes, specifically the NASDAQ, other stocks as well. If we see the air start to come out of those bubbles, I think that it will not take any time at all for the Fed to come in, intervene, reassure markets, do a complete about face, and begin asset purchases again, open the floodgates of fiat currency, and do everything they can to support these markets. But only time will tell. Let me know what you guys think. And if you guys are getting some value from this video, please do go ahead and click that like button below. Helps a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to the channel so you can see more videos like this in the future. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to see some more videos about inflation and the Fed and gold and silver, then check out these videos that are popping up on your screen right now. Thank you all very much for watching. I will catch you next time. Smart Silver Stacker, out.